Thank you, Travis. Good evening, viewers. We begin tonight's regional news by telling you that the Food and Drug Administration has approved Gilead Sciences antiviral drug remdesivir as a treatment for the coronavirus. In May, the FDA granted the drug an emergency use authorization, allowing hospitals and doctors to use it on patients hospitalized with the disease, even though the medication had not been formally approved by the agency. The intravenous drug has helped shorten the recovery time of some hospitalized COVID-19 patients. It was one of the drugs used to treat President Donald Trump, who tested positive for the virus earlier this month. The drug will be used for COVID-19 patients at least 12 years old and requiring hospitalization, Gilead said. Remdesivir is now the first and only fully approved treatment in the United States for COVID-19, which has infected more than 41.3 million people worldwide, with fatalities exceeding 1 million people, according to data compiled by the Johns Hopkins University. Remdesivir is approved or authorized for temporary use as a COVID-19 treatment in approximately 50 countries worldwide, according to the company. The drug is administered in a hospital setting via an IV. The company said this medication should only be administered in a hospital or in a healthcare setting capable of providing acute care comparable with inpatient hospital care. Now for some PAHO news. The Pan American Health Organization PAHO Director Dr. Carissa Etienne says the entity will only support the distribution of a coronavirus COVID-19 vaccine to member countries that is proven to be safe and effective in clinical trials, reviewed by the national regulatory authorities and recommended by the World Health Organization. Speaking during PAHO's COVID-19 digital briefing on Wednesday, October 21, Dr. Etienne indicated that there are currently 118 vaccine candidates under study, with 11 completing phase 3 stage of clinical trials, several of which involve volunteers from countries in the Americas. The director said vaccines are developed and manufactured with safety in mind, noting that the process is supervised by regulators and followed closely by the scientific community. She pointed out that once a vaccine proves safe and effective in clinical trials, regulatory agencies thoroughly evaluate the data prior to granting any approvals. Additionally, she said the WHO will oversee an independent review process before granting its own recommendation. The region of the Americas has to date recorded 18.9 million confirmed COVID-19 cases and more than 610,000 deaths. We now turn to Venezuela. A state of environmental emergency is being called by the fishermen in Trinidad and Tobago over a sinking oil tanker with 1.3 million barrels of oil. If the oil spills, it would threaten the entire southern Caribbean. At 264 meters in length and a capacity of 1.4 million barrels, the spill would be 5 times more worse than the Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska in 1989, which was the worst in history. Officials have been criticized for allowing the situation to evolve for 3 months without taking sufficient action. The Nabarima is a Venezuelan oil tanker, but partly operated by Italian energy giant ENI, and has been caught up in the U.S. sanctions since disputed elections questioned the legitimacy of the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro. The tilting of the tanker had been of concern since it was first noticed in July, and crews later discovered water leaking on board. The situation has gotten progressively worse since then. And finally, in Jamaica, Jamaica is reporting an increase in road fatalities for the year so far. According to the authorities, this year's toll is currently at 342, one fewer than last year's figure at the corresponding period. Last year, road deaths totaled 440. What is even more alarming is the number of motorcycle deaths, which accounts for 32% of the road users. There have been 108 deaths by motorcycles since the start of the year. 58 of the deaths by motorcycles occurred in the western end of Jamaica. Well, that's a wrap for tonight's regional news. Thank you for watching, and back to you, Travis.